Aside from the fact that pro runners train at a much higher level than us, there's plenty of things we can take from their weekly routine that can help us become faster runners. Today I want to go through 5 things that they implement into their training that we can take from them, adapt and work into our training to help us improve as runners. So without further ado, let's dive in to number 1. The first thing I want to talk about is their biomechanics and working on their biomechanics by the means of drills and strides. Now I want to explain how we can incorporate this into our running, because for pro runners, they're able to dedicate a lot more time to drills and strides than I guess some of us are, especially if we're in a rush in our training. Now for them, they'll be doing drills and strides before most sessions, or all sessions I should say, plus sometimes they even have dedicated times to run where they just go out and do a half an hour session of drills and strides. Now for us, it's a little bit more difficult if we're just working. For myself, just as a dad of 3, getting up nice and early in the morning, getting out the door and trying to get my run done, sometimes it's difficult to fit these things in. So how have I been using them in my recent training block and my previous one? I'm really committed to making an effort with drills and strides. Well, basically what I do is I take what they do, which is a bigger version of drills and strides, a longer dedicated time, and I just condense it down as best as possible before my workouts and my long runs. Sometimes my long runs, but mainly every single week before my workouts. Now, all I tend to do is work on quick feet, good form, quick turnover with the strides, and trying to keep myself upright with good posture. I don't do as many drills and strides as they do, but what I think to myself every single week is if I just spend 10 minutes before every workout doing these form drills and doing these strides, then in a year's time, I'm going to be so much better for it. Yep, I can't dedicate half an hour to it, but if myself and you guys can just give 10 minutes of our time up before we start our workouts every single week to do a small amount of drills and strides, high knees, butt kicks, A skips, B skips, those sorts of basic things, it's going to make the world of difference in the long run. And the second thing I want to talk about is all about how pro runners cycle their training so well. So they'll dedicate good time to rest, they'll dedicate some time to building their base, then they'll have a good build period of training, a good specific training period. They'll peak, they'll taper, they'll race, they'll rest, and then they'll repeat the cycle. And they'll have 2 or 3 cycles like this a year, especially in the marathon world, but obviously in shorter distance running, they have sort of like different track seasons and cross-country seasons and things like that. But there'll always be dedicated time to rest and base building before going into more specific work. And I think that's something so many of us can take a leaf out of their book from, because I think with the world that we live in today and the amount of races that there are available, it's very easy to just continually drop into race after race after race and not allow our bodies to rest and recover, because as we all know, resting and taking our easy days easy is really important to get those adaptations that we are doing, because when we're training, the goal is that we're stressing our body enough that we're going to get those adaptations and that growth that we need, but at the same time not stepping over that red line so that we overtrain and get ourselves injured. And by having specific recovery periods, I've talked about this in previous videos, having that recovery, yep, the first 2 or 3 weeks might feel a bit rusty, but then the next time we start training, we're going to be that next step up on the ladder. We're going to be starting that little bit further ahead than we did last time. And obviously pro runners, it's their job, it's their life. They're understanding that they need to take these training cycles seriously. And for us, we can do exactly the same. So yep, it's incredible to jump into all these races, but sometimes if there are so many of them, something that we can take from it is, well, maybe we don't have to take that race all out. Maybe we can use that as a training race, because at this point in time we should really be doing a little bit of base building, or we should be recovering a bit. So let's just ease off the gas, go and do that race because we want to do it, but maybe not give it full beans, and just respect our bodies a bit more, using that sort of training cycle methodology in our own training. And point number 3, quick tip here. This is just all about keeping those easy days easy. Want to keep this one really short and sweet, but we all know it, making sure those easy runs are nice and easy. I've given this formula out before in previous videos, but for me, when I'm looking at my own training, it's all about 90 to 120 seconds slower than marathon pace. If my goal marathon pace right now is between sort of 5:55 and 6:05 per mile, then my easy pace is at least 7:30 per mile up to 8 minutes per mile. That means my heart rate usually corresponds to around 126-7 beats a minute to 131 or 32. Lovely easy zone. That's where we want to be, taking those easy days easy, because that's what the pros do and that's what we've got to take from it. It's so easy to get carried away with social media and pressure and, oh, look how fast I can run my easy runs. Look, I've fallen into that trap, but over the years I'm definitely learning that it's so important to relax on those easy days. So quick tip over, just wanted to throw that one in there. And number 4, we just cannot overlook it. Strength and conditioning and mobility work is just key for pro runners. Obviously they're running such high mileage, keeping on top of their body and keeping them mobile and also getting their strength up is so key to be logging all of those miles. They'll be dedicating 2 or 3 sessions a week to strength and conditioning and mobility work, or most of them will anyway. And what can we take from that? Well, of course, I think the analogy that we can all use is you can have the best aerobic engine out there, but if the chassis, the body of the car, isn't up to scratch, then the engine will only get you so far. Talent will only get you so far. Hard work plus talent is exactly what's going to get you to the top. And that's exactly why pro runners are up there, because they've got talent and they're working hard. Now for us, what can we do with this? What can we take from it? Well, something that I've learned in the last training block or 2 is that, all right, I can't dedicate 2 or 3 times a week of big gym sessions. I just can't do it. As again, I'll reiterate, as a dad of 3, time is just not on my side. But what I can do and what I have been doing is dedicating 2 times a week. It was 3, now 2 times a week during marathon training. It'll go back to 3 when I'm out of marathon training. It's just 20 minutes, half an hour of an evening a week to either core work or upper back, working on my weaknesses. We all have weaknesses as runners. And we learn that over time when maybe we pick up niggles and injuries, what becomes a common theme, and we all have those areas that just let us down sometimes. So for me, it's about just dedicating 20-30 minutes. Yeah, it's nowhere near as much as they're doing, but for me, it's the best that I can manage. And for you guys, just see what you can fit in there, because it will make the world of difference to your running if you can dedicate that time to a bit of strength and conditioning and a bit of mobility. Nutrition is the 4th thing that I think we've got to mention. They get it so right, or most of the time they get it so right. And what they'll do with their nutrition, well, let's just break this down very quickly. We're not going to talk specifically about what you should eat. That's not this type of video. What I want to talk about is how you should eat, when you should eat, and what the focus of your weeks should be. So with professional athletes, obviously they have certain sessions in a week and long runs and runs that mean a little bit more than those easy runs. A lot of professional athletes will just get up, get out the door for those easy runs, just a cup of coffee or whatever, and they'll get out and go. You can call that a fasted run. You can call that just getting out of bed and just going for a run because I've got to squeeze it in before work. Whatever it is, those type of runs on those easy days, absolutely fine. But when you've got something a little bit more intense, a trap I used to fall into a lot was doing all my runs fasted, and it never got my stomach used to running with any food in the system. That's not helped me over longer distance racing, and it's certainly not helped me in particular with being able to take on fuel as I'm running. So something I've been working on and taking tips from pro runners into my own training is that they make sure they are well fueled for those sessions and those long runs. Take your pillars of the week. What are your pillars? Where are your sessions? Where are your long runs? The day before those sessions and long runs, make sure you eat a good amount of food. Don't go into the next day when you've got that session underfueled. Then when you get to that day, if it is early morning, see if you can get in a banana or a snack bar or something, or a calorie drink. Get something in you so you've got something in your system, and potentially take some gels with you as well. Just make sure you've got some fuel on you. Same with the long run. Now last weekend I did hands up do a long run without fuel. I just didn't have time, but in which case I made sure I fueled every single half an hour whilst I was out on the run so that I had something going into the system. I find that when I've got fuel in the system and I'm not running these harder and more intense workouts fasted, I get so much more out of them myself. And again, that's what you'll find them doing, making sure they're well fueled and the nutrition is on point, ready for their pillars of the week. And recovery is the 6th and final thing that I have to mention in this video. Now, professional runners take their recovery very, very seriously because ultimately they're running ridiculously high mileage, putting some good volume in, good intensity. They need to be feeling good for the next day. And the whole purpose of this video is to show that whole kind of process of training, strength and mobility, nutrition, and now recovery, the whole package. This is what they do as a combined that makes them what they are. Now, what can we do to translate that? Because again, just like I've said earlier, a dad of 3, I can't sit there and get home from a run and put my feet up for 2 or 3 hours and have a nap. It's just not possible, and I know so many of you out there are in the same position. So what can we do? Well, what I do and what I've tried to take tips from them and translate it into my own running is break my recovery in half. So when I get back from a run, I make sure that I've eaten something good for me, a good balance of carbs and protein. So I'll make sure I do that. I'll make sure I get some calories back in me and I'll do my stretches at that point. That just takes 5-10 minutes, job done in terms of that. Then the rest of the recovery I'll leave till later because I know that I'm going to have a busy time once I've got back from that run. Then in the evenings when I'm talking about when I might do some core and mobility work and strength and conditioning, I'll also dedicate some time to using a foam roller and a massage gun once I've done that. And again, just another 10-20 minutes at that point to iron out the muscles. I use muscle balm as well with a gua sha tool, which helps iron out the muscle fibers. I know some of you use that as well. Some of you might not, but massage guns and foam rollers do just a good job. So rather than me focusing, coming home and going, right, I've got 30 minutes of recovery to do now, then I can put my feet up. I go, no, just eat something good and get some stretching done. Once you've done that, carry on with your day, and then later do the rest of the work. The rest of the work, as I said, then being the foam rolling, the massage gun, and the muscle balm as well. So those are the 6 things that I think set pro runners apart from all of us amateur runners. Yep, they're able to dedicate a lot of time to all of the things that I've talked about. But hey, do you know what? If we can take and implement just small fractions of this, then for us, it's just going to help us become faster runners, and every single training block and every single cycle just be that next step ahead from where we were last time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic because it is a good topic to discuss. And for me, I'd love to hear you guys how you implement some of what pro runners do into your routine. Obviously, we're not pro runners, but we can take snippets from what they do, work them into our own routine, and hopefully make it work for us. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys what you think and if you implement anything as well. That's it from me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider giving it a like, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing to the channel for weekly running content. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Until then.